there, how's it going? Northern California here, Lake Mendocino. Drownings this year, 0, don't be the first. Campground closed. No overnight camping along the road. And so this road here is going in the direction of Lake Mendocino, a reservoir here in Northern California outside of Ukiah in Mendocino County, and I will most likely get to that lake in the course of this video. A nice, sunny and pretty warm day here in January. And so I just got back from 4.5 months of traveling to 12 different countries of Europe, and I'm from this area visiting family and taking a break from the travels. And so I thought that I would make a video talking about how I have managed to travel over the course of the past 3 decades. Summer of 1989, then I went on a vacation with my mom, who lives here in Ukiah, and my brother. She took me to Hawaii, the island of Kauai, for a week. You could kind of say that that is the beginning of my international adventures, although of course Hawaii is in the United States. But later in that summer, I also did a 3-week backpacking trip throughout the Sierra Nevada mountains of California here. It included backpacking off trail with a group, a organized trip there, and rock climbing. It was the next year, in the summer of 1990, that I began my true international journeys, when I went on a summer of backpacking to Europe on my own. I left California here and flew to London the day after I turned 18 and spent 4 months backpacking around Europe. So I've now been to 62 countries altogether, 9 times to India, spent 2 years traveling all throughout India, been to Greece 6 times, been to 24 Greek islands, been to Thailand, I forget, 5 or 6 times, been to various other countries multiple times. I've been on altogether 16 extended international journeys outside of the United States, totaling almost 6 years of traveling, and that doesn't include my travels in the United States here, which for several years I was kind of backpacking, hitchhiking, a vagabond around the United States, which I will be discussing in the course of this video. And then also that doesn't include my working in Canada. I was born in Vancouver, Canada, and worked in Jasper National Park. I will also be talking about that in the course of this video. And so I'm 46 years old and have been traveling off and on, not non-stop, since I was 18 years old. And so a great question is, how have I actually been able to do all this traveling? And so what I'm going to do in this video is talk about how I have managed to afford to pay for all these trips of mine. Because I do not have a trust fund, I'm not independently wealthy. I have been a very broke guy basically for most of my life, and just kind of scraping by, getting various jobs, saving up the money, and making the traveling happen because I wanted to. And so of course, when it comes to traveling, there are basically 2 main factors, other than of course your health and your desire to do it and your courageousness to actually get out there and travel. But basically it comes down to time and money. And so up there is Highway 20 heading east across California, and then west towards the coast and the Pacific Ocean. And then Highway 101 is just a few miles out that way. This is a very beautiful area of California, not very well known, and a lot of beautiful nature and hiking. There's various parks and wilderness areas. I was raised in the small town of Willits, just north of here, and have done a lot of exploring around here. And the redwoods are a few hours further north, and then the Oregon border, kind of a somewhat undiscovered area of California, or at least not as popular as other places in California, and Southern California, and Yosemite, and the Sierra Nevada mountains and stuff like that. So anyways, time and money are kind of the 2 main factors when it comes to being able to travel. As for time, then of course that is depending on your particular life situation. For myself, then I've always had the time because I haven't had the obligations of a family and mortgage and a career that requires me to be in an office 9 to 5, you know, stuff like that. So in this video then I'm going to talk about money. How have I been able to afford all this traveling? And I'm going to get very specific and talk about all of the jobs that I've had over the past 30 years. Well, maybe not, exactly all of them, but at least give a good idea of how I've managed to fund these 16 trips of mine. And so I'm going to start at the beginning, basically here, and go back to my trip to Europe in the summer of 1990. And so I graduated from high school in June of 1989, and didn't really have much planned as far as my future. I wasn't accepted into a major university, and I planned to come up here actually and live with my mom and go to the community college here. And so I did that for the fall of 1989, and was just kind of bored of school and had the travel bug. I guess I had heard of other people traveling. My parents had actually traveled to Europe when they were in their 20s. And so after the semester had wrapped up at the Mendocino College, then I was just ready for something else. And so I decided that I was going to go to Europe. And so the way that I managed to come up with the money for that trip to Europe is a combination of, I had a computer that I sold, I had a baseball card collection, and I sold that for another few $100s. And then after I was done with that semester of college, then I moved from my mom's here down to the Bay Area where my dad was living, and lived with him for the next few months. And I got a job at a ice cream parlor. And so that is kind of how I got the rest of that money together. Now, the main thing is that I managed to do that trip on very little money. I think that I had $1,300 in total after paying for my flights and my Eurail pass. Then I had $1,300 of spending money for 3.5 months. And so that works out to, I think, like $10 or $11 a day for Europe, which of course is not possible at all now, but this was in 1990 and hostels were a lot cheaper. I had a tent with me, I camped a lot, and I hitchhiked all over the United Kingdom and some other places within Europe, and then I had that Eurail pass to get around. But basically I managed to do it for very cheap. Now, I don't want to get too lost in the details here because there's a lot to cover, and so I'm going to try to fly through this. But kind of the idea is to basically give people a few ideas for, jobs that they can have in order to be able to save up some money and be able to travel. And so after I came back from Europe, then I had no plans, but I had applied to a university in Alaska, the University of Alaska Fairbanks. That was the one college that I had applied to. I'd kind of forgotten about it. I'd found it randomly in a book about colleges in the United States and had just kind of liked the idea and just went for it. And so when I came back from that trip, then I remembered, oh yeah, I applied to this college, and asked my dad, if I got in there, and he called them, and yes, I had been accepted. And so he funded everything, the flight up there and the tuition and stuff like that. And I went to Alaska and spent 2 years in Alaska. 1 year at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and then another year at the University of Alaska Juneau. I did, however, work while I was there. I got a job at the student newspaper for the college, and then I also got another job working at a little movie theater, the student movie theater. And so none of that went towards traveling. I didn't do any more international traveling for another 9 years until the end of the 90s, in 99 when I went to India. However, I did do a whole lot of traveling throughout the United States during that time period. And then after the school year was done, I got a job in Denali National Park in Alaska. I worked there for the summer of 1991, and then again went back there in 1992. Hi there, good. Just going for a little hike around the lake. Cool. See ya. Starting to warm up here a little bit with the walking along. And so you can see this is the campground that is closed for the winter. And Lake Mendocino out there. And I'm going to keep on walking along this way up this road, and then it goes to a trail, and then I'll get off the paved road. And so in the fall of 1991, then I had transferred from Fairbanks down to Juneau to continue my second year of university. And from what I remember then, my dad was paying for tuition, my flights from California to Alaska, and my housing, but not my food. And so I had to come up with some cash for feeding myself. And so a very random job that I came upon that fall was somebody that I was friends with there. Her father owned a cannery on one of the islands away from Juneau in the panhandle there, and they needed to wrap up the season. They had, like, you know, a few more fish. They just had like the you know, last catches of the season or whatever that they needed to process. And so I ended up flying with a few friends out to this island and spent the weekend working at this cannery, like 16 hours a day for 2.5 days, and made a few $100s. And I managed to make that few $100s last for like most of the semester, something like that. So basically, you know, I was just keeping my expenses low and living simply, which has really been the key to, you know, most of my life, basically. And then for the second semester, then I got a job working at the library on campus there. And then at the end of that year, then I went back to Denali and worked there again for the summer. After that, I moved back down to California and went to another semester of community college at Santa Rosa Junior College, and I got a job there working at the library. And so that is Lake Mendocino, a reservoir. And the video that I recorded last was also recorded on the lake here, but it was up on the other side, on the south end of the lake. There's a trail that goes along that way, and I'm going to keep on walking this way and get onto that trail. And so I decided that I wanted to move up to Oregon and just kind of try a new life up there. I like the town of Eugene, where my friend was living. And so I moved up there, and I had a few different jobs. I started a like handyman landscaping service, just a very simple operation of just me and my station wagon. I didn't even have a pickup truck or anything. And I bought a lawnmower, and I put ads in the local newspaper. This was 1993, so before the internet really. And so it was just a, you know, little classified ad in the newspaper, and I managed to get enough work to just kind of get by. And so I would drive around the city in my station wagon and load up the back of the station wagon with leaves and grass and move stuff around, you know, moving whatever kind of general labor that came along. And I managed to get by through the summer, and then later in that year, then I got a job at a bakery delivering bread to the local grocery stores, health food stores and whatnot. The job started at 5 in the morning, and so that was pretty rough, but I did that for like 7 or 8 months or something. And then after that, then I got a job delivering pizza. Now, after 1.5 years in Eugene, then I was ready for a change again, and decided that I was just gonna like go on this unknown hitchhiking adventure to visit a friend in Texas and do a few other things along the way. And so I quit my job, sold my car. Actually, I had a pickup truck at that point. And so I got some money from selling the car and moving out of the place that I was living, and left on this adventure with, I don't know, $600, $700, $800 or something in the bank. And that's kind of a whole long story that I don't want to get too lost in. I talk about this whole period of my life in several of my books: Kundalini and the Art of Being, and Following My Thumb, A Decade of Unabashed Wanderlust. And so that started a whole long 6-year journey of being basically homeless, without a home at least, the only like proper apartment that I had in that whole 6-year period that I can remember was in Arcata in California for just a couple of months. And then other than that, then I was hitchhiking all over the US, going to rainbow gatherings, working on farms, finding various random like odd jobs or temp jobs for just a short, you know, few weeks or something like that. I flew to Hawaii and lived on the beaches of Hawaii for many months. I went to Alaska once again in the summer of 1995 and worked there for that summer. I'll definitely be making more videos in the future, kind of, you know, zeroing in more on this time period and talking about some of the other stories, because there's a lot of pretty wild and crazy and awesome and interesting, you know, extreme adventure traveling stories from that period. But I didn't really have hardly any regular jobs through that time. And so, you know, most travelers don't really want to be a full-on vagabond and sleeping on the side of the road and hitchhiking and all that kind of stuff. But basically, I just kind of managed to scrape by. I usually only had maybe $100 to my name, maybe a few $100. And so I just managed to scrape up the money through various random little jobs here and there through that time period.